Before we call the meeting to order, since we have a few people in the audience, if you're here to speak on one of the public hearings, we have sign-up sheets in the back. If you could pick the right one and sign up if you want to speak on behalf of one of the public hearings. We have 3 scheduled tonight. Pomeroy Park Partners, Brian and Stephanie Purcell, and Brandon and Tricia Johnson. Thank you. Calling to order the New Kent County Planning Commission, October 20th, 2025 meeting. Welcome everyone to the Planning Commission meeting. At this moment, we'll have a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you can. Thank you. Mr. Ryder, please call the roll.
Ms. Townsend?
Here.
Ms. Johnson? Here. Mr. Moyer?
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Ms. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Here.
Dr. Schmidt? Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Ms. Rose?
Here.
Reverend Hathaway?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here, and we do have a quorum. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes. Anyone have any corrections or comments? Mr. Wright, I have one correction here. On number 15, meeting schedule. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday. Should have said October 20th. So it's just a minor correction.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll yield to you.
Ms. Bennett?
Thank you. Hearing no other objections or edits or deletions, I move that we approve the minutes as edited.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes as edited. Mr. Ryder, please poll the commissioners.
Ms. Townsend?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye. Minutes are approved from the last meeting. Next on the agenda is the citizen comment period. These comments are limited to those on planning-related issues that are not scheduled for a public hearing later on the agenda. Mr. Silva, do I have anybody signed up? No. No one signed up. Moving next to any presentations from staff? No presentations. Moving on to unfinished business. None. All right, now on to new business. We do have consideration of PC 20-25, an exception request made by Jacob Yost from the requirements of Section 98-1069B3 of the County Code regarding architectural standards of the Commerce Corridor Overlay District. Mr. Silva.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Again, my name is Patrick Silva, Principal Planner with the Department of Community Development's Planning Division, here this evening to provide an overview of the aforementioned exception request. So again, the request was submitted by Jacob Yost, pursuant to Section 98-1071 of the County Code, to waive the Commerce Corridor Overlay District requirement established by Section 98-1069B3. This specific requirement limits signage for individual uses within the bounds of the Commerce Corridor Overlay that are not located in a shopping center, office building, or commercial complex to no more than 50 feet in sign area. So the subject parcel in this specific request zone business is located at 3025 Pocahontas Trail, where Bottoms Bridge Tire and Auto Care is situated within the boundaries of the Commerce Corridor Overlay Zone, which extends 500 feet outwards from Route 60. So the original sign for the business, which did not include the digital reader board now present on the sign, has existed at the site since approximately 2007 and has existed since as a legal non-conforming since the time that the regulations of the Commerce Corridor Overlay District were introduced in 2022. The sign area exceeds what would currently be allowed by the Commerce Corridor, but because it was existing prior to those regulations being brought into play, again, it existed as legally non-conforming. So a little backstory. In early 2025, the sign was damaged by high winds and debris during a storm and was reinstalled with the addition of the pole-mounted digital reader board that you see there on the screen, taking the total sign square footage from its previous total of 64 square feet in sign area to 85 feet in sign area. As a point of note, it is the increased sign area in specific, not the digital nature of the sign, which rendered the sign non-complying upon its installation. Upon noticing that this had taken place, staff did alert the applicant of the notice of violation and that the increase in this sign area voided the previous sign's legal non-conforming status. And again, pursuant to the regulations of the Commerce Corridor Overlay District, which limit those sign areas to no more than 50 feet typically, this would not usually be allowed. Therefore, the applicant is requesting an exception from this requirement in order to be granted approval of the 85 square foot sign, freestanding monument sign located at the northeastern corner of the site adjacent to the intersection of Route 33 and adjacent to the roadway right there on 60. So to provide some quick context on sign regulations, sort of comparative analysis as it were, the business zoning designation, which governs the regulations applicable to this specific parcel, does typically allow for freestanding monument signs with a sign area of no more than 150 square feet by right. But again, it is the specific standards of the Commerce Corridor that then further limits it to 50 square feet. So I kind of outlined that to mention that typically, absent the requirements of the Commerce Corridor Overlay, this would otherwise be a permitted sign in the business zoning designation. To talk a little bit about staff's consideration of this request, staff did find that the requested exception would reasonably comply with the findings necessary to grant an exception to the design requirements of the Commerce Corridor Overlay Zone. In this case, staff feels that a slightly larger sign could be considered appropriate given the site context, as visibility is improved a little bit for customers looking to find the potentially easy to miss driveway that then does allow you to actually access the business. It's about a 500-foot driveway or so that you got to go down to actually get to the business. And again, it's not the digital nature that's strictly prohibited by the Commerce Corridor Overlay Zone. So the fact that this is a digital sign versus a sort of static sign that we would see typically isn't necessarily something that the Commerce Corridor discourages or staff has undue concerns about. So in reconciling those reasons stated by the applicant in their sort of narrative statement requesting the exception and staff's analysis in comparison to the findings that need to be true in order to grant such an exception, staff does feel comfortable recommending approval of this specific exception request. I also did want to point out that the applicant, Jacob, and his business partner, Dante, are here tonight in case anybody has any questions of them as the applicant. So that concludes this specific presentation, but happy to answer any questions you might have for staff as well.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. Does the applicant wish to speak, or?
Yes, I can see. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners,
and staff. My name is Jacob Yost. I represent Bottoms Bridge Tire and Auto Care. Bottoms Bridge Tire and Auto Care has proudly served this community since 1999. When we purchased the business in January of 2024, it was facing financial challenges. Over the past year and a half, we've more than doubled revenue, expanded our team from 6 to 15, over 15 employees, and provided substantial pay increases and new benefits for all original staff, all without raising hourly rates to our customer base. Our growth comes from a focus of process, communication, and education, helping customers understand why proper maintenance matters through 3 key priorities: safety, performance, and convenience. That same commitment to communication inspired us to enhance our sign after it was damaged, like Patrick said, in a storm earlier this year. We rebuilt it to the same specifications it previously stood and added a modest LED reader board to better communicate with the community. The LED reader allows us to share important updates of safety messages, etc., with drivers along Route 60, improving visibility and communication without altering the sign's height, placement, or structure. The sign maintains the same footprint. It's simply been enhanced to better serve our community. We appreciate staff's favorable recommendation and respectfully ask that the commission forward this request with a positive recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your time and consideration. And if you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Yost.
Of course.
Any commissioners have any questions for the applicant or staff?
I have a question for the staff. The distance from Route 60 to the sign, is it visible to see both ways very easily, or is it in the same exact spot? When you're pulling out, it doesn't obstruct the view.
With respect to sort of vision clearance, it's not located any closer to the road in such a way that it would obstruct vision clearance for folks, exiting or entering that site there.
Okay, thank you.
Just as far as a comment, I guess, and we stated before, I almost feel like we're setting precedents for approving the sign size in the commercial, or in the commerce overlay. And I'm not necessarily unhappy with the size of the sign. It's just that I know we need to kind of clean up or kind of marry up, I think, better with between the commerce overlay district and zoning. In this case, we had a case with the economic opportunity, I believe, was one, and then business. But how many businesses are located outside of the commerce overlay district? We probably hardly have any signs that would meet that could meet the 150 square foot limit. In this case, you're limited. Was it 2/3 less, right? So I'm not necessarily debating whether the sign size is appropriate or not. I think that, of course, I know we do need to address it on our end in the future. I think, like I said, tie in a little better with the other zoning, with the other zoning districts, and really look at what's the overlay district, what's the meaning of that, or what how should we address it. So, just comments at this.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Patrick, can you tell me, when the gentleman bought the property, is there any, in the closing paperwork or anything like that, are they advised of the Commerce Corridor Overlay District, or were they aware of it when they purchased the property, or is this a surprise?
That's an excellent question. Admittedly, I don't know. I haven't really seen any examples where it's been added into deeds or something like that. I can't really speak to the extent to which a realtor or the seller of a business might be disclosing or even aware in a lot of cases that their property is located in the bounds of the Commerce Corridor Overlay District. I'm not sure if Mr. Yost can speak to that.
So No, it was not expressed, and I haven't seen it expressed before in any other like ventures similar to this. Typically, what we receive is some sort of asset list, and there would be referencing a sign because it is, part of the business. But as far as the code, referencing the code, no, sir.
So to avoid this occurring over and over, I mean, is there some kind of notice that can and I don't know what the expense of that would be, but is it just, buyer beware, homeowner responsibility, you're supposed to check the zoning, or is there something that should go out to make property owners aware that this exists and that their property may fall into this overlay district?
I think that's a great question. I think there's a number of ways we could go about enhancing, sort of getting the message out there for folks that might not know their properties are encumbered by the additional regulations of the Commerce Corridor. I mean, as it relates to maybe an easy step that zoning could take, kind of shooting from the hip here, as it were. But, as we review certificates of zoning prior to folks getting their business license for a given commercial venture, we are confirming that a given business is able to locate not only at the specific property, but under the specific zoning designation. And I think it would be a fairly easy step to take to, as part of that process, also kind of just give folks an FYI of those additional regulations if their property were to be located in those boundaries. I mean, that's just one example, but I do think there are a number of ways staff could probably go about getting that message out there.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Yost, when did you purchase the property?
So I purchased the property in January 2nd of 2024.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've made many improvements since then, the sign being one of them, obviously, but.
Patrick, I think Mr. Larochelle makes a great point. I think what needs to be done is to be sent, the code needs to be sent to all businesses on the overlay districts, because it's not just 60.
Sure.
It's 249, 33.
Right.
I think if that would happen, because what we have here is, it doesn't matter that there's a new buyer. Okay, if the original owner would have done this to the sign, they would have been unconformed too. So whether it changed hands or not, that doesn't matter. It's that the sign is not proper.
Correct.
And that's why it has to go for a waiver. But we do have to eliminate this from happening every month. We're getting the same type of thing. Either they're looking for a waiver or they didn't know. And if we let them know, then we don't have that.
Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Moyer, and I'm asking this for your education mind, but usually there is required a sign permit for the erection of a sign as a business site or EO site, correct?
Yes. Yep. Any signage associated with the
So
business.
any new sign that would be erected, or a sign that substantially changes from its, or replaced or removed and put in another location on the same site, would require a sign permit.
That's correct.
Okay. So I think what we're finding here is just happened that an additional area was added to the sign that should have required a sign permit to do, that it was just overlooked from being done, and now we're faced with this consequence of regulating whether or not the sign should go on. I don't know it. I think there's some still due diligence that need to be done by the property owner to make sure they're aware of the regulations and the ordinances of the land of which we live in, that we just can't bury our head in the sand and say, oh, I'm sorry. So that's one statement. The other statement is, I struggle with this a little bit, and I know it's not a big thing, but to add the increase in sign size is eroding the ordinance that we have established. It's not making it more adhere to the ordinance, it's making it broader. So I think it's really negating the ordinance as we have, and not making a real good effort to comply, or generally try to comply to the ordinance. So with that said, I just cannot support it right now.
Mr. Chairman? So would this give the right of anybody else in that development just to up and say, well, if he got his sign a little bit bigger, can I do mine?
I think that raises a good question. I mean, certainly no, that would not enable anybody else to do it by right. But if the point being that, if someone, for example, sees their neighbor is able to get the bigger sign by requesting an exception, does that encourage other people to do the same thing? I guess that is an important consideration for y'all to keep in mind in this coming to you for the vote this evening, is where to kind of draw the line in the sand. I know something that's come up before in relation to the consideration of these exception requests is that maybe as the county looks at potentially revising some of their code provisions in the future, whether or not some of these requirements, including those of the Commerce Corridor Overlay Zone, could be strengthened to perhaps put an emphasis on a need for hardship or something like that in order to even qualify for the exception in the first place. So I do think that question is also related to the current strength, you could say, of the regulations or the findings that would need to be met in order to be granted an exception. But I certainly understand your point, yes.
Mr. Chairman, the precedent they're talking about is, if anybody's gone up 60 in the last several weeks, you'll see that 3 or 4 of the business lots have been cleared. As Mark said about precedent, we're expecting them to have monument signs also, and we're not expecting them to be 85 square foot or more than that. We want what Bojangles has, what Waffle House has. This is out in the limb, but I talked to a district supervisor down in Charles City, and I said a lot of my people don't want 60 to look like Mechanicsville Turnpike. And he said to me, you know what? My people don't want it to look like New Kent. Okay, so it's the relative of what we want in the way of the overlay district versus, blinking lines, and, larger than life signs are, not what is that whole corridor wants to be. Mm-hmm. And we just have not had a lot of business developed there in the last 5 years. Since VCU, which is 5 years ago, nothing's been developed on that piece of property. So this is the first situation that we've run into. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to revisit it when we look at our ordinances, the zoning ordinances. But I can tell you that I've seen a lot of customers there at night doing inspections, and they drop their cars off, and they never find it. They miss that. They turn into there's a little turn in just before you get there. Mm-hmm. And so I think we need to probably look at that. I do understand the significance of this case just from personal preference.
And Mr. Silva, and just a question, if the vote doesn't go the way the applicant would like to see, of course, what is the remedy? Does that the applicant does not have to conform to the 50 square foot? Am I correct in saying that, or it goes back to the original non-conforming size that was previously there? That's
correct. The applicant would be permitted, if the exception were not to be granted, to revert to the previous size that was legal non-conforming, which would be to say removal of the digital reader board. I suppose there's also the option to go to the BZA to request a formal variance from the requirements of the sign ordinance. But absent that process, yes, the remedy would be to bring the sign back into compliance with its previous legal nonconforming status.
Mr. Yost, can you describe any impacts you think it may have to your business if you're not able to keep the sign in its current state?
Yes. As we all know at this point, it is a very, very long driveway. It's, 500 feet, I believe, or so. And people don't know. We've been there since 1999. I have people on a daily basis state, we did not know you were here. So it is, obviously we're in the corridor, but we're further back than most, VCU, the veterinarian hospital, et cetera, the other businesses in the area. So it does offer some sort of landmark, for our customer base. So we can reference that. Yes. So I think it would affect it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I will say that I believe I was on the board at the time when Bottoms Bridge Tire and Auto came on at that time. There was a lot of disgruntled people that did not want to have the service station there, and therefore it forced them to move back because it was the thought of, if you're not seen, you'll be okay. I do think this company has gone through a hardship, and I think if we talk about hardships, this might be part of the case, because if his business was as where the animal clinic is, you can see that. But as for his business, you cannot see the business. So therefore, he's going to need something to draw that business or to catch that business to say that he is here. Just because he's way back there, I would like to kind of take in consideration of the hardship that had been placed on him back when it first came in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend.
I'm sorry, one more thing. Saying that our prices are better than CarMax is not showing somebody where the service station is. That's what it's reading on the
attention
bottom
getter.
of that. That's what it is. If they want to have a sign to show if they want a light to show where their service station is, and have a light to show where their service station is. But to add it to the sign, I don't understand. But
Is your
Just
sign adjustable?
It is, yes. We adjust it on a frequent basis. We do. So the verbiage that he states, it was a little misconstrued, but yes, we beat CarMax offers. So I'm in the automotive business. I work with CarMax. Essentially what that's stating is if you bring your vehicle in for service and you cannot afford service, or maybe it comes in the point of that vehicle's life where it's no longer worth investing into that vehicle, I will since buy that vehicle from them for the exact same price, just making it convenient for the customer instead of them having to go through CarMax. So that's all that was. But yes, the message is different today, and we change it frequently, so every couple weeks or so. Yes, ma'am.
But it is you are able to say business here?
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
comments. I don't think any of us up here in the auto business, so you have to do what's best for you, and
Sure.
we understand that. I think one of the main points that I look at here is within the district, there's specific requirements for the size of the sign. There's been a grandfathering basically of the size that we are, and it's not however you want to advertise is how you need to advertise.
Sure.
You run your business.
Yeah,
You need to
thank
do
you.
that. I think that the point here that we're looking at is the size. It doesn't matter the verbiage that you use or what you have on the sign.
Sure.
You've been, elevated in the size that you can have, and I think that's an important part of your business. I think there's other ways that you may be able to enhance that if this does not go through, and maybe
Absolutely.
look at some lighting and
Sure.
things like that.
Sure.
I do believe that for this district, and to piggyback off what Commissioner Bennett had said, is we want to set a precedent. We need to continue to be uniform in what we are as a commission. And that's why I think that it's important that we look at that, and as we go forward, and we make either favorable or unfavorable recommendation, because there are lots that are open, and we're going to see more development on 60, and that's our job as a commission, is to say, well, we have an overlay district that the board worked on in the past, whether it was commission or the Board of Supervisors that needs to stay within those guidelines. And, you know, I'm for you. I take my cards there, so, you know, you do what you need to do.
Yeah, thank you.
But continue to, you know, fall within that as a commission is how do we stay focused on what we want. I mean, if you think about it, that is the entrance to our county from the western side.
Sure.
The eastern side is the Barronville district. We need to make sure that we continue that and continue that what the district says. And maybe we don't always need to change what we have. We need to hold on to what our rules are and continue that forward. So,
Sure.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a remark to Mr. Yost. Mr. Yost, I noticed things were going on there since the pandemic when everything kind of slowed down.
Sure.
And I used to infrequent that establishment.
Absolutely.
And I drive by that establishment but probably once a week, if not more often.
Of course.
And I did notice the change when the new sign went up.
Sure.
Not the LED portion, but
Yeah.
just the new red, white, and blue sign.
Absolutely.
So that, I think your tactics are working.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a necessity to grow the sign because I think your tactics are working because you boosted the number of employees, your revenues are up.
Sure.
So you need to just continue what you're doing,
Yes.
okay? I'm still opposed to it, but I
Absolutely.
think what you're doing is honorable
Thank
and it's worthwhile.
Thank
And
you.
I just want you to continue with what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I have something.
Yes, Ms. Thomas.
As I sit here and I listen to what everyone is saying, I also want to think about, on the flip side, small business. We look for businesses to come into this county, and small businesses are very important. When I think about the tactics of what a big business does versus a small business,
Sure.
sometimes a small business can only afford a change to that sign versus the big businesses. They're all over the internet. They're using Google. They're paying for ads. They're doing all sorts of things that may be $10,000 to $20,000 a month. Small businesses don't have that.
Absolutely.
They just have the means to get that sign, and they make choices based on more employees
Of course.
or
Absolutely.
internet.
Yeah, most definitely.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to just bring out, because I hear what everyone is saying,
Sure.
and it falls for me on both sides
Absolutely.
because of not only just the rules in and of itself, because New Kent is the most beautiful county that we all
Of course.
live
I think
in.
so too.
But I also think about the small business.
Sure.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. When I came to New Kent several years ago, the slogan of New Kent is grow with New Kent, or business, or grow your business with New Kent, or something like that. So, I mean, that's exactly what I've been doing. And I've done that not only here, but in other places in New Kent. So I am a firm believer in community, and that is what puts me here today, is you all. So thank you. Yep.
Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Okay. Mr. Yost, this is just more of a comment than anything from another commissioner
Sure.
member. This by no means, our feelings by no means don't want advocation for your success. We know that the way that we vote is not a reflection on how well respected your business is.
Absolutely.
It does come from a place that we have all been entitled to help represent a planning commission, and this Commerce Corridor overlay was very seriously sought and thought after when they laid it down.
Sure.
So it is something that we have to take serious, or it wouldn't have been implemented too. So please take that into consideration. That my personal feeling on it would be, I personally think that an investment in a monument sign will actually make your business look
Sure.
very, very in conform. I don't want you to leave. My husband certainly loves driving down that driveway. And we are advocates of your business.
Well, thank
But
you.
I think that because of your precise location, we have to take very seriously where you are
Yeah,
in our
absolutely.
county. And
Absolutely.
you've got like an A+ for location. Because
Yeah.
that's really what it's all about. That built on your reputation. If it does come to where that you can build a monument, I think you can.
Of course.
Hopefully one day I would hope that you could, if this wasn't approved, be able
Sure.
to put a really nice looking sign that
Yeah.
would fit your business.
And I would hope to as well. You know, we've since coming there. I mean, it was a lot of work, and we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in the property at this point. And obviously, you know, restricted in areas. So I would say the only thing that, you know, I see differently, which you all have stated about, is our location versus the hospital or VCU or any of these other places. We don't have that road frontage, so there is no signage on the building itself. There is, but it's hidden. So that would be, I think that would be my only concern. You know, the existing structure that was rebuilt during the storm. There is no changes to it. There's no non-conforming changes to it. It's simply just a reader board at the bottom, and in which there's also been banners there before. And that was my thought process. My father's in construction. I should have spoke with planning and zoning first, but being a business owner and seeing your sign is down, I acted very quickly and I put it up, you know, and I called him to verify that I was allowed to do so, in which, again, you know, some things should have been brought to you all first. So I apologize for that, you know, I do, so.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Mr. Silva, if he applied for a permit to put this extra sign up, why wasn't that caught by the people that allowed him to have the permit to put the sign up? Why did they allow that if they knew it wasn't in regulation?
So the replacement of, so let's say a sign gets damaged in the circumstance that was the case here. If the sign is to be put back up with the same area and height, it would not require the submission of a new sign permit as long as it's not changing. Now, you're correct in saying that if a sign area were to be increased, that would necessitate the permit of submission rather of a new permit, which did not happen here. So it was caught upon inspection by staff and just notifying the applicant that it looked like the sign area had been increased and therefore wasn't compliant with the Commerce Corridor Overlay District and was notified of the need to either get an exception or bring it into compliance.
Same footprint. That's
Right.
why he didn't have to get an official permit to do it.
I mean, technically, it should have had, if the sign area was being increased, a permit should have been submitted in order to expand the sign area. Yeah, well, it technically went down, but yeah. Yeah. That's right.
And just as a add-on to that comment, to me, in this case, the visual obstruction is not changed.
Correct.
Compared to, because I don't believe people are looking under the sign.
Right.
So again, my impression from that is that it's not any more obtrusive based on how it was, even though it was non-conforming. And I will concede that certainly it was done without the benefit of a permit or checking into, but I don't believe it adds to any hazards or anything like that, as opposed to going laterally or
Right,
even
correct.
vertically.
Closer to the road or something like that. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, again, what was the rationale of the staff's position on it?
So, a big thing that we have to look at, the ordinance is pretty clear that there are certain findings outlined in the code that have to be found to be true. And granted, like a lot of legal provisions, these are maybe open to interpretation, which is maybe kind of a cause for a lot of these discussions about the need for strengthening some of those regulations. But in comparing the request to the findings that are necessary to be true, staff did find that those were reasonably met. And therefore, felt comfortable recommending a recommendation of approval in this case.
that was my focus when I looked at it. And I was torn because I remember years ago we wanted to put an overlay on 249, and we did not do it. And because we did not do it, now we've got all this traffic congestion there. And so I do think we need to look at the ordinance so that if there is a need to have larger signs, if we're getting more requests for that, maybe we need to address that in the ordinance. But I do think you have to stick with the code as much as you can.
Barring any further comments or questions of the applicant or staff? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we forward the exception made by Mr. Jacob Yost to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with an unfavorable recommendation for the following reasons. The increase in signage erodes the suggested meanings of the Commerce Corridor District in signage provisions.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. So we have a motion to move the exception request with an unfavorable recommendation. And help me with the reason again.
That erodes the suggested requirements of the signage standards of the Commerce Corridor District. Erodes the suggested standards of the Commerce Corridor District signage.
Rephrase it 3 or 4 times.
Okay. Okay, so erodes the intent of the commerce, the signage requirements of the Commerce Corridor. Mr. Ryder, did you get that? Okay. Okay.
Review it, don't take.
So, okay. So we do have a motion for an unfavorable recommendation. And with that, Mr. Ryder, can you poll the commissioners?
Ms. Townsend?
No.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Abstain.
Mr. Dabrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Thomas?
No.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway?
No.
Mr. Davis?
No. So the motion carries. With that is the unfavorable recommendation for the reason that the increase of the signs size erodes the intent of the signage provisions in the Commerce Corridor District regulations. All right. Moving on to public hearings. We have 3 public hearings scheduled for tonight. I'm going to turn the public hearing session over to Ms. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have 3 public hearings before us. Each has been properly advertised for tonight's consideration. Let me take a moment to review the procedures that we will use for tonight's hearings. Each public hearing will be considered separately. Staff will give a brief overview of the hearing that is before us. The sponsor of the case will be given an opportunity to make a presentation. Commissioners will be given an opportunity to ask questions of the sponsors or staff for clarification purposes. I will then open the citizens' comment portion of the public hearing and receive your comments. Sign-up sheets are located on the desk by the front doors of the admin building. I ask the following. You come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, address your comments to the commission, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. When the timer sounds, please conclude your remarks. If you are representing a group, you will have a total of 7 minutes. Please note that the commission members will not answer your questions during the citizens' comment period, but will certainly take those comments and questions into consideration during the deliberation period of the public hearing. I'll now open application ZM-02-25, Pomeroy Park Partners, LLC.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And again, good evening. Next up for your consideration, as mentioned, is a rezoning request submitted by Pomeroy Partners, LLC to rezone a 7.03 acre parcel located at 4620 New Kent Highway from A1 agricultural to R1 single family residential in order to enable its subsequent subdivision into 8 residential lots in order to allow these additional lots to be functionally incorporated into the approved Pomeroy Park subdivision. Alrighty, so just a little bit of context first. Again, this is the subject site outlined in red here is the larger, already approved Pomeroy Park cluster and open space subdivision. Again, this is a 103-lot residential subdivision, and the highlighted portion near the bottom of the screen there is the parcel that is proposed to be rezoned this evening in order to be incorporated into the community. Alrighty, so a little bit of background here first. The Pomeroy Park Cluster and Open Space Subdivision Project was approved as a by-right subdivision under the regulations of the Cluster and Open Space Subdivision process detailed in Ordinance O-1521. Now, in July 2022, after this had already been submitted for review and therefore was grandfathered in under those regulations, the New Kent County Board of Supervisors voted to approve Ordinance O-11-22, amending the cluster subdivision regulations under which Pomeroy Park was approved. So included in these changes were changes to the permissible density and minimum open space values required in order to move forward with a cluster and open space subdivision. So due to the aforementioned changes, the approved Pomeroy Park subdivision is now unable to be amended to include the 8 additional lots, which would be added via the rezoning of the Custer property, as this would trigger a requirement to comply with the current day cluster and open space subdivision regulations, which this development would not. As such, the applicant is seeking to rezone the subject property from A1 agricultural to R1 single-family residential in order to allow a subsequent subdivision of the property into 8 lots of commensurate size of those in the approved Pomeroy Park subdivision so that they may be developed as single-family residences and functionally incorporated into the Pomeroy Park development. So, shown here is the concept plan for how those lots would be subdivided if the subject parcel at the center of this rezoning request were to be rezoned to single family. So again, these lot sizes and density would be commensurate with those that were the case as part of the approved Pomeroy Park community. So the existing home along New Kent Highway would remain, and its access would remain in the same place. 6 of the lots would be accessed off of a new road branching off of River Bridge Drive, and then that lot 2 there, I believe the applicant has an updated concept plan they may show in a bit here, would be proposed to be accessed off of a individual driveway from River Bridge Drive. But again, this is just a concept plan. All access considerations would be considered as part of the subdivision process subsequently. So to talk a little bit about staff analysis related to the rezoning request, regarding traffic impacts first, so the applicant has indicated that pursuant to the thresholds established by pertinent traffic impact materials that VDOT sort of, in which the VDOT standards are contained, the additional 7 lots, not including the existing lot, which would remain, but 8 total, envision as a result of the proposed rezoning would generate less than 100 additional vehicle trips per day, and therefore anticipate that the traffic impacts of the rezoning would be largely negligible. And in their review of the request, both VDOT and our Transportation Development Department expressed no concerns regarding the potential increase in traffic volume stemming from the proposed rezoning and subsequent subdivision. Regarding some utility considerations, the Department of Public Utilities did comment on the importance for accounting for water availability, as this, these are served by private septic systems, but it is connected to the county water system. Therefore, it's important to account for water availability in relation to future development in this portion of the county. But again, the overall water use impact stemming from 7 additional lots would generally be anticipated to be quite low. Other comments of note as it relates to planning's analysis of this rezoning request. We do believe that the rezoning request is appropriate for several reasons. So firstly, the subject property is located directly adjacent to several other R1 single-family residential properties located directly across New Kent Highway. And as such, the rezoning request would not represent a spot rezoning that would result in a parcel of isolated zoning designation. In addition, as I was kind of getting at a moment ago, the development character and parcel sizes associated with the future subdivision would result in parcels that would be consistent with those of the approved Pomeroy Park subdivision, which surrounds the site on all three sides. So in effect, unless you were looking at the zoning map and you were not aware that they had different zoning designations, you really would not be able to tell that these were zoned separately and were not approved as one community. And again, they would be developed with the same product as the Pomeroy Park subdivision would be. Indeed, staff even found that the proposed overall density and open space provided for the combined Pomeroy Park, the original approval plus the proposed subdivision would comply with the density maximums and open space minimums in place for the open space and cluster subdivision process at the time of the original approval of Pomeroy Park. So in other words, if this parcel had been included as part of the original open space and cluster subdivision proposal, it would have complied with all regulations that were in place at that time. So with the aforementioned considerations in mind, staff is comfortable recommending approval of the rezoning request. I also did want to take a moment to introduce Nathina Hodges from the applicant team here, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the proposal from the applicant side of things.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Nathina Hodges. I'm the project manager and zoning coordinator for Rogers Chenault Inc. and Pomeroy Park Partners. I first want to thank Mr. Silva for his thorough presentation of our request, as well as all the departments for their input during the review process. I plan to just highlight a few important elements of our project, just to keep this presentation as short as possible. So some notable features that you'll note is the existing 75-foot natural buffer shown in the dark green color that surrounds the outside perimeter of our parcel. This buffer is already recorded with Section 1, and it will remain as is, with the exception of the new public road connection that will be known as Googie's Trail and a driveway connection for Lot 2. The name was provided by Ms. Kuster for some familiar relations, so there's definitely a history behind it if anyone asks. There will be a 35-foot right-of-way dedication with along New Kent Highway that will match Section 1's dedication. The density of the request is 1.14 units per acre for all 8 lots. And as mentioned, Lot 1 with the existing home will be retained by the current homeowner. This is planned to be recorded as Section 2 with the Pomeroy Park HOA docs governing it. So these will also have lots, these lots will also have the rights for uses of the amenities and trails within. So I wanted to provide an overall color map to give you a better visual of the existing Section 1 and these proposed Section 2 lots within it. Those are outlined in pink. That you can see. The entrance into River Bridge Drive that Googie's Trail will come off of is a right in and right out access only. So it's good to note that there is a full access entrance off of Emily Jane Place over to the right side off of New Kent Highway. And as you can see, these lots are compatible with the surrounding uses in their size and shape, and also have little to no impact on environmental factors as they are not within the RPA areas. Some of the housing elevations I've provided are marketed currently in Section 1. We just wanted to provide, these will mirror in Section 2. And so on the upper left corner, that's actually one of the builder's models that's constructed in that section that you can see today. So, like I said, I wanted to keep it short for you all, so I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions and concerns that you may have.
Mr. Chairman, for Lot 2, how do you access Lot 2?
So I have a little, you see that little gray stem coming from that? It will come off of River Bridge Drive. We have a note that says it's a possible driveway location. The plat will have to kind of determine where that driveway location will go once they get to that stage of vertical construction due to topography changes, et cetera.
Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hodges, what's the current status of Section 1? About what percentage of it is completed? What percentage is occupied with dwelling units?
So currently, I don't believe there are any occupied units, but there is ongoing construction all on along Emily Jane Place, Gooden Trail, and Donner Court, which is all on the right side. Currently, we don't have the River Bridge Drive lots on the market yet. We kind of wanted to phase that in as that one side kind of gets developed, especially since it is a right in, right out access easement or entrance. So we're just kind of slowly making our way over there. However, the roads are already constructed, and we're working on some turn lane improvements as well.
That would be all roads and both, say, subsection A, subsection B of Section 1? All the roads are constructed?
Yes, sir. I don't believe the subsection B is paved quite yet, but we're working on that.
And all the lots in subsection A and B are platted?
They are, yes, the whole Section 1 is platted.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I have one other question for Mr. Silva. This, at this point in time, if it is voted on, this will be one parcel. Is that correct?
So, say that one more time, sorry?
The 8 additional residentials, will this end up being one parcel of the whole?
The intent would be, the rezoning would be of the entire single parcel that exists in its 7.03 acre current form. The long-term goal would be to subdivide that into 8 smaller lots, though, out of that one just over 7 acre parcel right now.
So it's not going to tie into Pomeroy Park?
It will tie into Pomeroy Park.
It will.
So all these individual lots in Pomeroy Park are already platted in individual lots as well.
Okay.
Yep. So it'll follow that same platting pattern.
Mr. Silva, to be clear, because I know you mentioned it in your introduction, you're doing it this way because if you just incorporated that acreage into Pomeroy Park, it wouldn't conform to the current cluster subdivision standards.
That's correct. Under the current cluster and open space subdivision standards, there's a much larger minimum open space value required than was the case when Pomeroy Park Section 1 was approved, and also the permitted density is much, much, much lower than was previously the case. So, again, to amend that approval, that would trigger compliance with current day requirements, which it couldn't do. So we really tried to work with the applicant to try to figure out a way to make this work, and this was the most straightforward process.
And realistically, from driving through what will be Pomeroy Park, you really wouldn't be able to tell where that parcel ended and the rest of Pomeroy Park began. Right?
Correct. Unless you were looking at a zoning map and saw they had different zoning designations, no, it would functionally appear from pedestrian view as being there from the start and incorporated in the community from the start.
Mr. Chairman, so the question, applications from Pomeroy Park Partners, but the land is owned by the Kuster. So is there, I don't want to make any assumptions. I guess they would be selling it to Pomeroy Park if it's subdivided?
That's correct. Yes, yes, except for Lot 1, which the Kusters would remain, their existing home would remain there. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, one other question. There's currently public water, but not public sewer.
That's correct.
To that entire area?
That's correct. Yep,
Okay.
there would be individual private septic systems for all of the units. These units would follow that same development pattern.
Mr. Silva, if this is disapproved, what would happen? What are they allowed to build there under the current zoning?
Well, the current zoning is A1, so all of the permitted uses, obviously, single-family residential is an existing permitted use in the A1 zoning designation, which is the use that is there currently. Obviously, you're not able to develop more than one primary residence per parcel, subdivision of A1 zone properties is quite tricky. There is a more limited, without getting in the weeds too much, a more limited menu of subdivision options that are available for A1 zone properties, and a lot of them require larger lot sizes. Subdivision into subsequent parcels would be difficult, if not impossible, outright under the A1 zoning designation.
Mr. Chairman, I feel that at this point in time, that would sort of clean up the paperwork because you didn't have a A1 in the middle of it, which would be spot zoning. So therefore, I find that it's probably a workable thing for us.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners? If not, I'll open up the citizens' comment period. Okay, there are no citizens signed up to speak, so I will close this public hearing and turn it back over to Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Any discussion from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Commissioner Townsend. This makes that area a little more unified, and what's being offered there is residential home sites, and it'll prevent us from having the spot zoning there. They cleaned that up, so would tend to support this.
No, I agree with both with you and Ms. Townsend. Any other comments or discussion amongst the commissioners?
Well, if there's no other further comments on it, I'd like to make a motion. In order to address and protect and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt resolution number PC 18-25 to forward application ZM-0225 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. So we have a motion to approve the application ZM-0225 Pomeroy Park Partners for the rezoning from A1 to R1. Mr. Ryder, could you poll the commissioners, please?
Ms. Townsend,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Abstain?
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Ms. Thomas,
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle,
Nay.
Dr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Bennett,
Aye.
Ms. Rose,
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway, Mr. Davis.
Aye. Motion carries to approve or recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors for ZM-02-25. And now back to the next public hearing, application CUP 0125, Brian and Stephanie Purcell. Ms. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll open public hearing for application CUP 01-25, Brian and Stephanie Purcell.
All righty. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So again, next up for your consideration is a conditional use permit request submitted by Brian and Stephanie Purcell for a proposed assembly hall / event venue use on a 4.66 acre parcel located at 5321 Hopewell Road, which pursuant to Section 98-62 of the New Kent County Code does require a conditional use permit in order to operate within the A1 agricultural zoning designation. So to provide a brief overview of the proposed use, the applicant is seeking to utilize the site to host small-scale, intimate events, including weddings, birthday parties, family reunions, religious retreats, that sort of thing, for a maximum of no more than 50 guests or attendees for any given event. The site is currently and would continue to be served by private well and septic systems, but for all events, the applicant proposes to rent and utilize portable ADA-accessible restroom facilities to be used, which would then be pump/hauled and sanitized after the conclusion of each event. No existing buildings located at the subject site would be used in relation to the proposed use, which will instead utilize a proposed ADA/fire code compliant outdoor deck and tent area. On the topic of parking, the applicant is also proposing to implement a 20-space gravel parking lot on site to accommodate event parking with no overflow parking to be permitted elsewhere on the site or in adjacent right-of-ways. So there's on this the screen here a sort of concept plan for how the site would be laid out. So you do see the existing house in the bottom right-hand corner there. Again, this is just a concept plan, but the relative area of that proposed parking area located off of a sort of means of access to adjacent sites, that there would be a ADA-compliant walkway that would feed attendees from that parking area to the sort of outdoor deck area, and then the same thing then going to the sort of tented area, in case of inclement weather, give folks a place to kind of get under some cover. So to address some of the staff analysis in relation to this, staff is generally supportive of the CUP request, but I would like to take a moment to highlight a number of comments received from our interdepartmental review team and get in a little bit to the conditions of approval that staff would feel comfortable attached to this case in order to recommend approval. So regarding traffic considerations, VDOT did note during their review that the site entrance needs to meet minimum design standards for a low-volume commercial entrance, and in accordance with the VDOT road design manual, and also meet all applicable stopping site distance requirements. And as such, the applicant has worked with an engineer to ensure that the site entrance will meet all of the aforementioned requirements. In terms of environmental review, while no new structures are proposed to be constructed at this time, there is a note that any land disturbance in excess of 2,500 square feet will be required to follow all the appropriate requirements of the land development and land disturbance processes. With respect to sort of building or code compliant comments, our building division review team did state the need to ensure that all walkways and facilities are building code and ADA compliant. And as such, this requirement has been added as a condition of approval in relation to the CUP request itself. Regarding some sanitation considerations, both the Health Department and Department of Public Utilities have indicated the need for waste from the ADA-compliant bathrooms to be pumped and removed after each event, which the applicant has indicated will be the case. And in addition, the Health Department has also indicated that if the restroom trailer is proposed to be connected to the resident's private water supply, a bacteria sample will need to be provided with test results to ensure safety of use. Finally, to address some planning staff consideration, while we do anticipate the impact stemming from the small scale use to be not so severe, conditions of approval have been added to address potential impacts stemming from things like event duration and frequency, traffic and parking, site cleanliness, noise, and lighting impacts. So to that degree, I won't go through all of them individually, but we have assigned 18 conditions of approval here, including confining hours of operation, requiring that site plans be submitted for any new construction, requiring that off-street parking not be located in close proximity to residential properties, capping the maximum amount of attendees, requiring ample parking to be provided, requiring that site cleanliness and trash and garbage be disposed of properly and site cleanliness be adhered to, no lighting being pointed at adjacent properties, no sound systems, all sound systems rather needing to be directed away from adjacent property lines, requiring conformance with the concept plan provided, that sort of stuff. So with all that in mind, staff is recommending that subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the staff report, staff is recommending approval of this conditional use permit request. I did also want to take a moment to highlight that the applicants, Brian and Stephanie Purcell, are present tonight in case anybody has any questions for them as the applicant. But with that, I conclude my presentation and happy to answer any questions you might have for me as staff.
Mr. Chairman. On the site here, the church is right next to it, right?
That's correct.
Would there be any activities during the time of church services? So on, say Sunday, you would do something in a later part of the evening, or?
Yeah, most weddings, I've been performing weddings since 2008, and most weddings are later afternoon times. If you have early morning times, they're usually at like an overlook or things like that, but for this particular one, nothing's going to happen in the morning time.
Mr. Purcell, could you come up to the podium?
Mr. Purcell, the asphalt drive that's shown on the plat, is that the drive that goes to the church? Or is that
No,
just-
the asphalt driveway is from Hopewell Road to Calvin Taylor's place in the far rear.
Okay, so that doesn't serve the church. It serves another residence.
Yeah, it's a right-of-way easement on our property.
Mr. Chairman, in the event you have more than 20 cars, what do you plan to do?
I'm going to stress that it only can be up to 20 cars because we want to make sure that we have plenty of room for people to get in and out of the cars, backing out, things like that.
But if you have more than show up, what do you do? Send them away?
Well, if I'm notified ahead of time, then maybe I can make arrangements like at one of the local churches. Hey, can we rent out a few spaces and I can carpool them in? But I'm going to max out only up to 20 cars on our property.
But in any event, you would limit it to 50 people.
50 people, yes.
Mr. Chairman? And I think this is probably a question for Mr. Silva. In the list of conditions for the CUP, item number 1 excludes any activities between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., which is normal.
Mm-hmm.
But then condition 8, it talks about outdoor components of use, not including parking, must be set back at least 50 feet from adjacent property and must not be operated after 9 p.m. What's the difference and what's the distinction?
The idea would be that that sort of last hour would be for breakdown of the event operations, which would be factored into the permissible sort of period of operating.
Okay.
So, we wouldn't want, there can be definitely noise impacts, people leaving the site as a result of site cleanup post-event. So we would want to be, ensuring that is not taking place during the quiet hours of the county's code.
Okay, so outdoor components would need PA systems, speakers.
Exactly.
That
That's
type of
correct.
thing?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And Mr. Purcell, you've had an opportunity, obviously, to look at these 18 conditions, and you feel you can comply with those that
Yes,
staff
sir.
has generated?
Yes, sir.
Question for Patrick. For the health department requirement that every time the restroom trailer is connected, there has to be a water sample, and you're bringing this in and out?
So it wasn't.
One-time thing, or this every time?
So it was only if as well. So I maybe Mr. Purcell can speak more to this. Some models, for some ADA compliant bathrooms, there may be no water connection into the bathrooms. If they were to be connected to the private residence water system, or their well system rather, they ask that a one-time water sample be provided to ensure that safe usage. Ensure safe usage rather. Yep.
Mr. Silva, if you don't mind, please, before you sit down.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. What is the trigger or the demarcation where the site has reached its improvement status that it then can be used as the conditional use permit allows? There's no structure per se that a occupancy permit is being issued for. And if I recall, there's no certificate final completion on the site plan aspects of it. So what's the trigger that everything we want you to do or need you for you to do to use this site in accordance to the CUP is now allowed?
Well, we would ask that the applicant alert us when they think they have completed the required improvements, adhered to the concept plan as was submitted, and has met all other pertinent requirements listed in the condition of approval. And then you'll see that under condition number 18, not only at that point when they've alerted us to that being the case, at any time if we want to ensure compliance with the approved conditions, county staff will have the right to enter the premises to determine whether or not the use complies with all of conditions of approval with respect to ADA requirements, all that sort of stuff.
What I'm trying to avoid is the cart before the horse, is allowing the use before the improvements are established on the site.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second thing is, in the past, we have asked for sunset clauses that the conditional use permit expires should that the property owner or the applicant choose not to do something or has failure to complete the requirements as outlined in the conditional use permit conditions. I would suggest to our commissioners that we set a sunset clause for this application too.
Mr. Chair, I gather in the first thing you have, all business-related activities, it says at the end, all days of the week. That means he could do it Sunday morning. Okay, even if he says now, no. But could we strengthen that somehow?
You absolutely could. And in fact, Mr. Purcell really indicated...
I'm sure he doesn't mind, just that we don't want to have that in. Because to remember that a conditional use permit goes with the property. So if somebody who buy the property, that would be their conditional use there. And so we don't want to have that to go to the next owner.
And that's something staff would be comfortable with. To be candid, we kind of left that a little bit flexible just in case, and in his application, I believe he indicated you were only looking to do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the most part. But just in case there was the odd Tuesday or Wednesday event, he didn't have to come back for CUP amendment or anything like that. But certainly if the intent of the commission were to want to avoid any impacts with, church services or something like that, certainly the verbiage of that condition could be strengthened. Absolutely.
Mr. Silver, does this property remain the Purcell's primary residence with the event space?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, when you say Sunday services for churches, we're not just talking about the 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock service.
Sure.
A lot of churches have afternoon service. Church.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I would be concerned about the potential noise.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, I see the 50-foot buffers on each side of it. So what would we be requiring him to make sure that there's a actual buffer?
So with respect to a sort of vegetative buffer, this was more of a sort of additional setback that we were looking to require as part of the condition. There is existing vegetation heavily, particularly on the eastern portion of the site. But that being said, staff did not include in the CUP request any requirement to plant or retain a specific vegetative buffer.
So
per
are
se.
any of these other houses or these lots of parcels right here within scene distance?
I know there is, and maybe Mr. Purcell could speak to this a little bit more, but I know there is significant vegetation, again, on that eastern portion. How well it might screen year-round, maybe that's a good question. But I do know there is significant vegetation there.
And that's all, that would be the three sides?
I think maybe, I think there might be a little less on the western side, on the Lebanon Baptist church-owned property, because again, there is that access easement that runs through there that then accesses the Taylor's property, kind of in the upper left portion of this site. But maybe Mr. Purcell could speak to kind of existing vegetation at the site.
Yeah, from where the venue will be, you will not be able to see any type of houses. There's lots of trees buffering everything. When you go up the right-of-way easement there, you can see the church on driving up that road, but once you get around the curve, you don't see that as much.
So you're back behind the curve then?
Yeah, we're like back corner there. So I mean, everything around us is just all woods, and I purposely wanted that to happen so we wouldn't be able to be bothering any neighbors where they can see things and keeping the noise directed towards our place instead of theirs.
One more question. Ms. Silva, any venue like this, is there any type of permits needed for the activities?
With respect, so I mean, in the case of assembly hall or venue uses where sort of events with certain amounts of attendees are implicit in the use, that wouldn't trigger typically the initial or wouldn't trigger the additional requirement of like an event, a cultural events permit or something like that. You know, because it is kind of one of those things where because there are no new buildings being proposed, and you know the full site plan process that some other requests might need to go through wouldn't necessarily be in play up front. We did want to make sure that we were capturing a lot of the sort of things that could be done to mitigate any impacts in terms of CUP conditions. Like with a lot of CUPs that will require formal site plan submission and need to meet all those requirements down the line, that site plan process does a lot to capture impacts as well. But in this case, we really did want to try to capture as much as possible as part of this conditional use permit.
Madam Chair. Mr. Purcell, what's the square footage of the tent?
I'd say 20 by 40, so, sorry, I don't have the exact numbers, but that's
800 square feet, so,
yeah.
it's just under the threshold for
20
a
48,
building
yeah,
permit.
800, yeah.
Madam Chair. So back to what Ms. Townsend was getting at with the vegetative buffers. So the vegetation that was just discussed is on your property.
Mm-hmm.
And anything within that 50-foot setback, would you agree to not disturb?
Right.
So it would stay, so can that be added in as well, that existing vegetation?
Yeah, the only thing that I have cut down is where I'm making the path and where I will make the parking. But all of that is on my property. It won't go bother the other side of the property.
Mr. Silva, how far is the closest residence? I guess the residence to the east of the property?
That's a great question. Yeah, I would say the Miller-owned properties are probably the closest in terms of like proximity to where the actual event components of the use would be taking place. Again, the Taylor's property is quite close as well. Again, it's kind of almost just to the upper left of where you see that rod in the upper left corner of the subject site in this request. So that it's quite close as well. There are a number of residences kind of encircling the site, but I would say the Millers are the closest to where the event operations would be taking place.
And what's the distance between the middle of the property where the tent's going to be to that residence? I'm just trying to get a
if I were to guess, I would guess approximately. I would have to follow up with to give you a real accurate scaled answer. If we're saying that there's that 50-foot buffer around there, I would imagine it's probably 150 feet or upwards of there away at its closest.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a sense because I live in a large lot subdivision, and my neighbors are probably about that same distance, and I know if they have parties, I can hear everything. So.
Chair.
And that's what I noticed that mailers went out on October 1st to the neighbors Did we receive any pushback from anybody?
We did not receive any public comments voicing opposition. No.
Madam Chair. Mr. Chair. All right. No, she's actually, yeah.
Yes.
How close is the church from the tent?
That's a great question. It's a little bit further than the closest residence. I would have to guess upwards of 200 feet or so. I'm not sure. Does that sound about right?
It's a pretty good distance. Like I said, where the tent's going to be, you won't even be able to see the church from there. You can't see any houses from where it is. It's all on the back end there, and I mean, you got to walk like where Mr. Miller's property is. You got to walk through the woods a great deal just to get to his house. You know, his house is on Townsend, probably maybe 150 feet off the road, and the woods separate us a great deal.
So is there anything to buffer the sound?
Just turn, if we have speakers, turn them away, towards our property so it doesn't travel out that way. My daughter actually got married there October of last year, and speaking to Galvin, we had a DJ, and I believe he said he hardly heard anything because of the way the speakers were turned. And we were done by like maybe 10 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, so.
If there's no other questions, I'd like to see whether we can hear from the public. I think there may be some people signed up to speak. Elaine Johnson, is that?
Good evening. I need help. I don't know the protocol.
Ma'am, can you state your name and your address for the record, please?
Elaine Johnson, -8 Macon.
Thank you.
I own the property at 5281 Hopewell Road, New Kent, Virginia. It's located next to the one school room, traditional, historical black school that was located. It is now called Tunstall Community Center. So I did not get any type of communication. I did see the sign, and I believe the reason I did not receive the communication is because when you look at the map, my property is next to the Tunstall Community Center. So I can walk from my property across the Tunstall Community Center property right over to the neighbor's property and right over into the church property. So my concern was the parking, because if parking is done totally on their property and not on property that's adjacent to theirs, that has always been the Tunstall community property, representing that one-room black school room house for the community when my father attended and had an 8th grade education. So that was only, again, I don't know the protocol. I was concerned about what was being used on property that is not owned by the neighbors who are adjoined to it. Because during the wedding of his daughter, parking was done on that land, and that land is adjacent to my property. I also own property at 11701 Newtown Road, New Kent, Virginia. So it faces Newtown. So anything that's done, and I like to call it a hollow, which means that sound will buffer around. At the 5281, that's next to the community center, we have a brick partition, a brick wall that runs down. So you will not see our land, my land, because it stops, it borders with, so it backs up to, I think it's the Jeffrey land, and next to which they said the community church, which is actually a community
That is 3
center.
minutes.
So I was just concerned about parking on that land, which should not be happening for any event.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. That concludes the citizen comment portion, and I will turn it back over to the chairman for further consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Rose.
Maybe out of order, but I just wanted to add a comment. I did not sign up.
Would you like to speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please come up to the podium.
I didn't sign up. My apologies.
That's okay. State your name and your address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Kelvin Taylor, and I own the adjacent property, me and my wife, 5403 Hopewell Road. I'm in the, like you said, the back of Brian's property. And I know me and him have talked about this quite a bit. My only concern, which I've also expressed to him too, is just the parking that's going to be adjacent to the driveway, which is a right-of-way through his property. The parking area, is there a stipulation where that has to be a distance from the driveway that is there, that access my property? I'm not sure about that.
We can't answer questions during this comment period. It's just a comment, sir.
Yes, sir. That was just my only concern. And like I said, me and Brian have talked about that as well. But I just wanted some clarification on it at some point. It will impact, as accessing our property, because that's the only way in and out. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll continue the discussion. Let me close the public hearing and turn it back over to the chairman, and we can have additional discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. So yes, for further discussion amongst the commissioners, any other discussions or?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just to be clear, the parking will be limited to your property in those 20 locations?
Yeah, the only reason we had a parking for my daughter's wedding, I had permission from Calvin, as long as I maintained the grass. Oh, I'm sorry. As long as I cut the grass over there, I was able to park. And so he gave me that permission to use that. I think we've had one birthday party of mine and one wedding where we had parking there, but both times I had his permission. But it won't be used anymore further out. We want to put it on the back side. And that is going to be 35 feet away from the right-of-way. So it's not going to affect any of his.
And in the event you go over 20 cars, I think you said you would try to negotiate with the church or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Mr. Purcell too, as far as parking on the driveway, it is, as it being a right-of-way, there will be no parking on that.
Right. It's going to be
physically
35
on the
feet
driveway.
off of
That have
that.
to be in the parking area, parking lot.
Yeah, it's 50 feet from my property line, and then 35. It's 35 feet from that right-of-way easement, so it's going to be back up in the woods.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would suggest to the commissioners these two additional requirements be part of the conditional use permit, just for the consideration. Number one, a 50-foot vegetative buffer be retained except for the needed walkway and vehicular access ways, and that's around the perimeter of the property. And number two, the conditional use permit expires 5 years after the Board of Supervisor approval unless required site improvements and conditions of the conditional use permit have been met. Those are two I consider would be valuable for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Rose?
Would it be prudent to have one additional condition requiring some type of notification when all improvements are done and they are open for business? That would probably be Mr. Silva.
Yes, staff would not be opposed to such a condition.
Because you were saying that because there's no permanent structures, no certificate of occupancy, there's really no bright line in the sand, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. That was the process that we had discussed with Mr. Purcell, but staff would not have any issue with that being formalized via condition as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My only concern, I heard the residents speak, but I'm thinking about at times, as Mr. Hathaway say, when there are church services, because not all church services are the typical 11. And so my question is, how, in the case of two events happening at the same time, who gets to choose? That's my concern here, because we're so close to the church, and I know church have outdoor activities, and sometimes they may even have services outside. So who gets to choose at that point? And I think I know that's a question, but that's what I'm concerned with.
Sure. Yeah, understood. So, again, staff, as part of drafting these conditions of approval, really tried to focus on making sure there would not be any interference, regardless of what may be happening at adjacent sites with respect to operations at this site. But that being said, again, as Mr. Moyer kind of got at earlier, if the commission were to feel more comfortable with refining that condition one to, if there was an established time frame at which, adjacent properties, churches were having regular events, to minimize that conflict, that's something that would certainly be within the power of the commission.
Okay.
And just throwing a time, I was going to say the time maybe to pick. Now, you may be certainly the best suited to.
Yeah, I think there's a real chance for conflict, really.
Yeah.
Because if you have a funeral on Saturday and you've got a wedding schedule, funerals aren't planned in advance. So, there's going to be conflict. And it would really be important for the two to work together, to try to minimize that. But I don't see a way to get rid of all the conflict.
Mr. Chair, I would add the Sunday being a prohibition, okay, not having Sunday. I think that would be appropriate, and I think we, all agree with that one. The other thing I wanted to bring out, though, if, he's had a birthday party, he's had a wedding there, he's had stuff there. Him coming to us is somewhat beyond what he really got to do. He's not erecting something, he's not adding any type of plumbing, any type of structure. For the parking, yeah, that's a moving of dirt, for a parking, but he's been having these things already. I think now we've able to conclude that it'll be like this, but not like whatever you want. It's like this. Okay.
And my thoughts actually on the Sunday, if we restricted him all day Sunday, how much of an impact would that be for your planning services? Could there be a happy medium for a time that you would not start your activities? I mean, sometime early afternoon, maybe.
Yeah, I would be either willing to start later afternoon for Sunday or to exclude Sunday. But I know with the church, I believe there are some Sundays you guys are not in service. So it would be hard to kind of work, I mean, we could work out a schedule, and I'm willing to work out whatever schedule is needed. But I'm maybe even taking weddings off of a Sunday, and if I have like somebody who may want to have like a picnic or something, event, that could be later afternoon. I'm very open to working with, the community with what would be served best. Me performing weddings, I actually perform more Friday through Saturday when I'm traveling for it. So most weddings are, but there are occasions some people want to do it on a Sunday, so, but like I said, I'm willing to work with the community.
Any other straw discussion on the prohibition on Sunday or a time for Sunday?
I don't know that you have to limit all of Sunday. Because
After 2 o'clock?
Yeah, because you're going to have conflicts either way. So I don't know that I would, if I'm in your position, I would want to give up a whole Sunday.
Yeah. Well, and I tend to agree with you. I don't want to be so restrictive to, because it's a two-way street. I mean, they're neighbors. They're both neighbors to each other. So, and so far it's been I would like to think, a good or decent relationship between yourselves and the neighboring church. Absent of any other discussions, would anybody like to take a crack at amending some of these?
One other question. If we have a sunset clause, what happens? He's got to come back and go through the process again. Have we done that before?
We have. We're doing it tonight. Item 4.
Okay. Okay. So why do we say 5 years?
It should be, I probably was to sponsor this. There should be a time limit of basically saying, okay, applicant, you need to perform or you don't. And put some sunset on that. If you don't want to let it expire, let somebody maybe have an opportunity on another piece of land, okay? But just to let it ride forever and a day, I think that doesn't do the justice of land planning for the future, okay? Number 2 is things change. Like in the next application that you'll hear, it wrote out 5 years, but the neighbors who are new to the area did not know that this property had a conditional use permit on it. They are new to the area, and for 2 years, now they have a chance to talk to the conditional use permit application since it has expired and needs to be renewed. And number 3 is, I just don't see, I'm trying to eliminate the possibility of an applicant coming in, getting a conditional use permit on a piece of land that they have no intention of using the land for and selling it to somebody else. I'm trying to keep it homebound. So those are my reasons for doing it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll add to that as well, is that we've had some subdivisions that were created in this county that had no expiration dates on it, and I know one that did pop up that was 30 years old. So to me, that went way too long, but there was nothing we could do because it was already approved, and it was approved with the conditions 30 years ago.
Why wasn't the condition put on starting the development? If we're going to approve it, if they don't start in 2 years or whatever.
That's in essence what my condition is for. If they don't meet the requirements of doing this special use or conditional use permit, make those improvements, okay, then it expires.
Right.
Okay.
So if they make those improvements, then in 5 years they don't have to come back?
No.
Okay, now I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
It sort of keeps the books cleaner. Sure.
But as Mr. Bennett said, it stops somebody from getting a conditional use permit to be able to sell it.
Right.
For another reason. So it makes it a lot cleaner like that.
I just didn't want, I was not comfortable with someone having to come back every 5 years. Okay.
Some of us may not be here.
Right.
Dr. Hathaway, there was, and this commission ruled on it, I think last year, where the pilot had a conditional use permit that was 5 years, and they had to renew it again in 5 years. And when we voted on it at that period, at that time, that condition of the expiration, so long as it's continued use, expired. It's gone away. It's disappeared.
Right.
All right. Well, again, absent of any more discussion, I'm thinking entertaining some motions. I know amendment to the first one, and I think we, in a straw vote, decided.
Can we discuss those terms that we'd like to add?
Yes.
So the first one would be maintain the 50-foot buffer.
That would be number 19. Yes.
And then the expiration, which would be the sunset clause.
Well, before that, I'd suggest notice of applicant when they complete the all conditions of the conditional use permit. And then expiration would be 5 years. And then I would suggest if someone wants to make a motion to amend number 1 with the hours that add except for Sundays when activities shall not start until 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
If someone wants to tie all that together. Well, I can make a motion too. Though. Let me do that.
I think you should.
All right.
Y'all
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that in order to address, protect, and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt Resolution PC 1624 to forward application CUP-01-25 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation. I further move that the Planning Commission finds this project be in substantial accordance with the comprehensive plan with these amendments to the conditions of the conditional use permit. Number 19. A 50-foot vegetative buffer shall be retained except for needed walkways and vehicular access ways around the perimeter of the property. Number 20. The conditional use permit expires 5 years after the Board of Supervisor approval unless required site plan improvements and conditions of the conditional use permit have been met. Edit item number 1, and I'm not sure of the terms of item number 1. They are that
Just the hours of operation.
Except for Sundays.
All business-related activities are prohibited on the property between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 p.m. all days of the week, except for Sundays, when activities shall not start until 2 p.m. Shall not start until 2 p.m. Are there any more?
Yes. The notice
Okay.
to.
And
Notice
number
by the applicant.
21.
Notice
Notice of
by the applicant when the CUP conditions are met.
Notice by the applicant when the conditional use permit conditions are met, shall stand by.
Then 18 will kick in.
Yeah.
And then the county staff can have the right to enter the process.
Stand by, please. By authenticated by the county staff within the 5 years. Okay. 21. Notice by the applicant shall be provided to the by the applicant when the conditional use permit constraints are met shall be provided to the county staff with verification by the county staff, and if it has not, the conditional use permit shall be expired within 5 years. I think I got it.
Mr. Ryder. Okay, so we have a motion. We have a motion to approve application CUP or adopt a resolution PC 1625 to forward application CUP 01-2025 to New Kent County Board of Supervisors with the favorable recommendation with the 18 enumerated conditions that staff has provided, including an exception to item 1 adding except for Sundays when activities shall not start before 2 p.m. Adding number 19, and again, the verbiage that Mr. Bennett used, but the making sure that the existing vegetative buffer, 50-foot buffer around to remain on the 3 sides of the parcel. Number 20, the CUP expires in 5 years. And 21, notice by the applicant when the CUP conditions are met and verification by staff. Is that, I think that wraps it up somewhat. So we have that motion, and could you poll the commissioners, please?
Ms. Townsend?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Moyer?
Abstain.
Mr. Dabrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
I was really hoping you would read all that back, Mr. Ryder, but aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye. Motion passes, and I will not repeat all that. So, all right, and we have one more CUP from public hearing, application CUP 0225, Brandon and Tricia Johnson. And I'll pass it back on to Ms. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our last public hearing for this evening is application CUP 02-25, and Brandon and Tricia Johnson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's me again. And again, the final item for your consideration this evening is the conditional use permit request submitted by Brandon and Tricia Johnson for approval of a proposed commercial kennel facility on a currently vacant property located on Stage Road, identified as tax map 35-3B, which pursuant to section 98-62 of the New Kent County Code does require a conditional use permit in order to operate in the A1/agricultural zoning designation. Alrighty, so just a little context. That is the site there on Stage Road. There are a number of residences located across the street, but all of the other abutting properties on the same side of the street are currently undeveloped. It's also worth noting that the applicant does own that property that is immediately south of them as well, of a sort of similar shape. But the kennel facility would be located on the northern one that is highlighted there. So just a brief overview of the proposed use. The applicant intends to develop this site as a commercial kennel where they will provide board and care for no more than 35 dogs at any one time. And they would also propose to provide dog washing and grooming services for dogs under their care. The applicant has stated that the future kennel facility buildings and enclosed dog run will be set back significantly off of Stage Road. Again, obviously there would be a site plan for development of the site in the future, but in a sort of concept graphic provided by the applicant, this was the relative location that they were looking at placing those buildings. In any case, the buildings are planned to be located significantly back from Stage Road, and staff has alerted the applicant again that the future development of the site in relation to the proposed use will be subject to formal site plan review and approval. In addition, the applicant has indicated their proposed hours of operation would be Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with some exceptions made outside of these hours via appointment only. So an important point of additional background here as well. The applicant previously received conditional, on the topic of sunset clauses this evening, the applicant previously received conditional use permit approval from the board for the exact same use at the exact same subject site on August 10th, 2020, via the Board of Supervisors approval of Resolution R-3120. Now, in that CUP approval at the time, there was a condition stating, this conditional use permit shall expire on the 5th anniversary of its approval if a certificate of occupancy has not been issued. Unfortunately, the applicant was not able to develop the site and secure a certificate of occupancy prior to the CUP expiration of August 10th, 2025, and as such wishes to secure reapproval in order to move forward with the project now. Relating to sort of staff's consideration of the request, staff is generally supportive of the CUP request, but similar to what you had heard earlier this evening, I would like to take another moment to highlight a number of comments received from our interdepartmental review team in relation to the proposal. Regarding traffic considerations, VDOT noted during their review that any future site plan for an entrance on Stage Road would need to be designed to meet moderate volume commercial entrance standards per their road design manual. Regarding sanitation considerations, the health department did highlight that the EPA regulates wastewater systems for kennels, and that that soil evaluation design work for such systems must be conducted by an OSE, and may need the involvement of a professional engineer for the non-human wastewater generated by the dog kennel. But again, these considerations would be addressed at the site plan stage. To address some of and then also to address some comments received from the sheriff's office did advise the applicant to educate themselves on the regulations of the Code of Virginia pertaining to operation of commercial kennels and dog breeding operations, even though dog breeding is not proposed at this location, just to familiarize themselves with all pertinent state requirements applying to such uses. Looking at some of the planning staff's consideration, while we do anticipate the relative impacts stemming from the proposed use to be relatively minimal, still conditions of approval have been added to address potential impacts of things like, again, hours of operation, site cleanliness, traffic and parking, noise, and lighting. In addition, the development of the site will be required to take place via the formal site plan process, during which additional impacts will be addressed and additional site plan requirements must be met as part of that process. I would also like to take a moment that I think y'all were forwarded two letters from nearby property owners that did have some questions and concerns about operations at the site and how that may impact their own sites. Staff does feel confident that the concerns addressed as these letters would be adequately addressed both by the conditions of approval implicit in this CUP as well as the additional layer of review that would take place at the site plan stage. But with that in mind and all of the afore considerations and analyses, subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the staff report, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit. I did also want to take a moment to note that Ms. Tricia Johnson is in attendance this evening on behalf of the applicant in the CUP request, just in case the commission does have any questions for the applicant. But with that, I conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have for me as staff.
Mr. Silva, would you remind me the last name of the two correspondents? They had similar last names.
I believe the first letter that was issued to you was from Mr. Milton Clark Jr., and I believe the second letter was from Patrick and Whitney Clark, if memory serves correct.
Thank you.
I believe Mr. Milton Clark does own the adjacent property that is immediately north of the subject site, this sort of, this piece right here.
At the evening hours, will the dogs be contained at night? They won't be allowed to run the runs?
That might be a good sort of operational question.
Yes, our kennel runs will have indoor and outdoor portions and doors that go down. So in the evening, all the dogs will come inside and the doors will come down. So they won't be allowed to be outside barking during that
time. Mr. Silva, the property to the north, is that all farmland? You said it was not developed.
It is currently undeveloped. I actually believe it is in an AFD district that is present in this portion of the county. I'll admit I haven't done deep research into what the proposed or what the agricultural operations here are, but it strikes me as being a silvicultural AFD. I'm not sure if.
Because I know in Mr. Clark's letter he mentioned that they've been farming there for I think he said 100 years. So, but there's no houses on that.
There's no residence on that parcel, no.
Okay. Okay. What's the closest residence?
It's a good question. The closest residences relative to, again, a site plan hasn't been approved, so I'm really kind of just judging based on proximity to the property. There are some residences back here on Clark Road, and there are also some residences directly across stage, sort of over here, but it's several hundred feet to the closest residence proper, even from one of these, parcel lines outlining the site. But again, final location of the buildings on site would be subject to the site plan review.
Okay. And there's room for an adequate buffer over and above what the normal site plan requirements would be.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I will kind of pull up. We have the conditions of approval for this specific use back here. Number 2 addresses that the location of the kennel facilities must be at least 150 feet from any residential dwelling unit, and the applicant must provide a 75-foot undisturbed vegetative buffer around the perimeter of the property, except in the areas utilized for ingress, egress utilities, or stormwater management. This was the same condition that was included in the CUP when it was approved back in 2020. And on 2 fronts, one, that is definitely a greater setback than is required for front, side, or rear, typical of an A1 zone property. That's actually double the largest A1 typical setback. And then the way that vegetative buffers work as part of the site plan process is it's typically a function of asimilar zoning designations that are next to each other. So where for example, like EO might be next to agricultural, a certain level buffer might be required. But when 2 properties are zoned A1 next to each other, buffers are not often triggered as part of the site plan process. So that's why staff did feel it was important to capture a buffer requirement to minimize impacts as part of the CUP.
And what's the maximum number of animals that can be kept under the kennel?
So the applicant they're planning on having 30 units, but they would have up to 35 dogs in the case that, owners were bringing pets that live together and might be more comfortable being boarded together. So 35 is the maximum that the applicant has indicated they would care for at any one time.
And what's the maximum number of dogs a person can have of their own? Is there a max?
Staff did not condition something like that. I'm not sure if the applicant has a sort of informal policy in mind.
No. If in a normal sense, if someone were to own, if they're hunters, for example, and they have their own kennels, they own all the dogs. Is there a maximum number?
Could I have 100 dogs on my property?
I was just curious, just for comparison.
That's a good question. I actually don't have that at my fingertips, but I'm sure we could find out. Yep.
I have a question. Did I hear properly that when the dogs are outside, they will be still enclosed in something?
Correct. We would require that, as part of one of the conditions of approval, that any dog exercise area be fully enclosed, any outdoor area where the dogs would be.
Enclosed. Okay.
But the runs face in toward each other, right? Toward the center. You got the main building, then the 2 kennels, and the runs face inside, so it's not outside.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. So has any conditions changed since we last approved it? Any new homes have come into the area, or is it in essence the same setting?
In terms of sort of site conditions or proximity conditions, there hasn't been, I can't promise you that there haven't been any new homes built in relative proximity, but the development character of the neighborhood has remained the same since the last, the sort of character of the neighborhood has remained the same since the last approval.
Mr. Silva, these are going to be vacation dogs. When you're going away, they'll be kept.
I think that's the general idea, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And fencing? I think I saw, was there a reply to the questions about fencing? Is the whole lot going to be fenced?
I did reply to the entire kennel facility will be.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Not, we'll move on to the public portion. First person on the list, Paul Clark.
Yes, my name's Paul Clark, and my address is 6450 Studley Road. I'm an adjacent landowner to the, I guess, southeast of him. Had a few concerns. I did send in a letter. Evidently, it didn't get to the right department. But anyhow, some of the concerns that I had were, one, traffic. Stage Road is a pretty narrow road, no lines. Basically a narrow 2-lane road, a lot of curves. So the traffic load was a little excessive for the current situation of it. Two, a line of sight. That particular property happens to be in a kind of a curve that doesn't really allow for a great line of sight for traffic to come and go very safely. Another concern would be noise. Really no way an operation of this size could have that many dogs and not affect the neighbors in some way, shape, or form, kind of at all hours of the day. Yeah, they're 8 to 5 business, but the dogs will be there 24 hours a day. And say an ambulance or fire engine or something goes down the road and the dogs are all howling and carrying on excessively and so on. Odor also would be an issue with that volume of dogs on the property, and pollution and water runoff and so on, since we are downstream in a Doskin Reservoir watershed for Newport News. And then finally, it's commercial business, should be in a commercially zoned area. Not saying it's a bad business, just not in the right area, as it needs the ability to grow as any business would. And in order to be successful, that's what it would need to happen. So the next step of this business, does it get 70 dogs or 170 dogs, or does it get built up and then sold to a commercially run operation down the road, since the CUP goes with the property, not necessarily with the owner? So that'd be another concern that I would have. But yes, I would be opposed to this being next to my property.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next on the list is Patrick Clark.
Yes, my name is Patrick Clark. I live at 6015 Peace Road, Mechanicsville, Virginia. And I own the land with my brother Paul Clark, adjacent to the lot that the proposed kennel is on. The road, like you said, is a direct detour off of 64 when 64 is backed up, and the traffic piles up, and more traffic would be just not a safe situation, and the curves in the road also. Of course, the lighting and the smell and the noise is also a concern, but my main concern is like an environmental concern. I farm in the area for right many years, and I work directly with NRCS and Farm Service Agency to plant cover crops to control the runoff into the Doskin watershed, which is a drinking watershed for Newport News. And that's my main concern. And adding parking lots and structures divert the water in a lot different ways than a natural way of draining the water into the Doskin watershed. And the creek that actually runs through the property on the backside goes right into Doskin Creek, which feeds Newport News, which feeds Doskin Reservoir, which feeds Newport News in watershed. So that's my main concern. And as far as the land, it's vacant right now, but future plans, I might want to build a house there, and that would might deter me, or if I wanted to sell it, that would also maybe deter the seller. So, I mean the buyer, deter the buyer. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. The last citizen to comment, Milton Clark, Jr.
Yes, my name is Milton S. Clark, Jr., 7112 Sunny Hill Drive, Mechanicsville, Virginia, 23111. I farmed in the area practically my whole life. As you may be able to see, I'm got a little age here, and I like the area very much, but I am concerned about Stage Road and the school bus traffic there. And I'm cognizant of the fact when I move equipment, I have to be very careful to try to time it so I'm not involved with the school buses. There are approximately 6 or 7 school buses that travel that road twice a day. So I want the Planning Commission to think about that. That's a huge concern of mine. The other concern is, as you saw on the map, I have the closest piece to the proposed kennel. And the kennel is located on Mr. Johnson's property in a configuration where it is close as it can possibly get, I believe, up to my property line. So I'm concerned about that. I own 35-3 tax parcel, and I do feel like the kennel would devalue my property if I wanted to come and build a house there. And the entranceway that I have off of Stage Road into my property now is right up against Mr. Johnson's property line, to it pretty much. And it does have a perk site that was designated when I bought the property. Bought the property from Mr. James Moody, probably about 5 years ago or so. And that was a criteria of me getting the large lot subdivision categorization on my property. I have a plan with Mr. Wallace, Jim Wallace, Colonial Soil and Water, to possibly clean up that land to make it some more farmland, as I have cleaned up some places in the past. And this is what I intended to do here, and I still may do it. It's probably about a 22-acre area that I could clean up to be a piece of farmland in addition to what I already have.
Mr. Clark, if you can wrap your comments up, please.
I'm sorry, I can't hear that well.
The timer just sounded. If you could
Thank you very much for
wrap
hearing
your
me.
comments up.
I appreciate y'all hearing me.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the citizen portion of the public hearing, and I will close the hearing and turn it back over to Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Any discussion amongst the commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Stage Road is considered a state road? And on this site plan right here, what is the setback on that side? How far the distance is that from this piece of property?
So on this exhibit,
Yes.
so again, this is kind of just a concept plan. I will kind of stress again that ultimate location will be determined by the site plan. But again, in terms of what the CUP would add as an additional requirement on top of the site plan, that kennel facility could be no closer than 150 feet to any residential dwelling. And there is also that minimum 75 undisturbed buffer around the perimeter of the property that would be required. So typically, the minimum setback, let's say if this were developed as just a residence, would be 25 feet for the side yard. That just by virtue of the buffer alone, that more than triples the normal requirement in terms of setback. And then at a minimum would need to be located no more than 150 feet from any residential dwelling.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sorry, my husband knows more about all of these plans than I do. But I believe he's looking to build a kennel about 500 feet off the road, back off the road, and then maintain at least 75 feet from the border with Mr. Clark's property for these kennel buildings. And also, I would like to add that on the adjacent property that we also own on the southern side, we're planning to build our home there. So this will be, our forever home. We want it to smell great. We want it to be beautiful. We want it to be, quiet. So we will be, on site, running the business and living there as well.
Mr. Silva, can we go back over this again? So we are looking at 500 feet off of the road, right? Going in?
I know that's what the applicant has indicated, in terms of how they would be setting back the buildings from Stage Road. We didn't, as staff, include that as a condition of approval, but, the commission always has the ability to add that.
But on the side pieces, again, what will the buffer be?
So the minimum, there would be a requirement for an undisturbed vegetative buffer of no more than 75 feet on the entire perimeter of the property. And then any of the kennel buildings would need to be set back no less than 150 feet from any residential dwelling.
Which doesn't really apply now because there are no other residential dwellings, right?
Would the 150 feet be restrictive on the neighboring property owner to not be able to locate to the setback if they chose to do so?
That's a great question. I don't think that staff would retroactively enforce that for someone that chooses to build, a home closer than that. I think that's more to, let's say, for example, they get the CUP approval and someone builds their home in the interim and then they move forward with the site plan. We would ask that they take into account any homes that are built between the CUP approval and ultimately them moving forward with the site plan. But of course, if the Planning Commission felt comfortable with a different verbiage for that condition, that's of course something that could be amended as well.
As a reminder, Mr. Chairman, the conditional use permits apply to the subject property, not to the adjacent properties.
And I guess a question, I know the Clarks came into this property approximately 5 years ago. Were they the property owners at the time of the last CUP?
Yeah.
Well, I was curious if you owned the property the last time. Did you own the property the last time this came up, the CUP last time? We entertained this 5 years ago. When did you buy the property?
Yes.
You did own it last time?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to add that I did not own the property at the time of the last one. I think we bought in October of 20, and I think this was approved just before that at some point. So.
Mr. Silva? And I understand the concerns about runoff and sanitation. what has the health department indicated as far as the requirements that for permitting and also the potential site plan?
So again, considerations with respect to the implementation of the sort of specialized wastewater systems would be accounted for at the site plan stage. They haven't necessarily, they didn't, as part of the CUP process, feel like it was necessary to condition anything up front other than what would normally apply at the site plan stage, but just kind of wanted to flag that for the applicant as part of the CUP request to kind of give them an expectation to know what to expect. And with respect to sort of other environmental impacts, I haven't seen a sort of site-specific delineation outlining the exact location of RPA on the site. From our county's GIS layer, it looks like there may be the presence of a little bit near the rear of the site, but it doesn't look like it's anywhere near where the applicant would be proposing to construct their kennel facilities.
Okay. But all that would be scrutinized very, very closely in the site plan.
That's correct.
Process.
Any other discussions or questions?
And would we be adding a expiration time frame on this again?
So we actually, as staff, have included that same condition that triggered the expiration previously. If the commission wanted to alter it, of course, that would be within their purview, but we do have the same condition that this conditional use permit will expire on the 5th anniversary of its approval if a CO has not been issued.
Any other discussions, or would anybody like to offer a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll entertain a motion. In order to address and protect and promote the public conveniency and the necessity, the general welfare and good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt the resolution PC 19-25 to forward the application CUP-0225 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution PC 1925 to forward application CUP-0225 to the Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation? Mr. Ryder, can you poll the commissioners?
Ms. Townsend?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Abstain?
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye. Motion carries with a favorable recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. All right, that closes the public hearings for the night. Next is the chairman's report. Consideration of the time, I have none. Reverend Hathaway, do you have a Plan RVA report?
No, nothing other than what I do have one thing. Jim Holland,
I think many of you may know him. He was a supervisor on the Chesapeake Board. He was just an invaluable resource for Plan RVA. He was an accountant and he taught at UCUP Pass last week. So that's a big loss for Plan RVA.
Thank you, Reverend. Commissioner reports. Mr. La Rochelle?
No, sir.
Ms. Thomas?
No, thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Not at this time.
Mr. Dombrowski?
The only thing I have to say is praise to the planning department for being at the New Kent County Fall Festival. It was good to see them out there, out and about with the community. So, that's it.
All right. Ms. Townsend?
Not at this time.
Reverend? No. Dr. Schmidt?
No.
Mr. Bennett?
I will pass.
Ms. Rose?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Moyer.
Just one thing, to report back from the Board of Supervisors meeting, they also approved Wawa sign. Okay, not keeping in necessarily the same gist of what we did tonight, but that was approved by the Board of Supervisors. Their sign.
Oh.
Wawa.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay.
All right, thanks, sir. Staff reports.
Good evening, Chairman, other fellow planning commissioners. I'll be brief. Just wanted to give you guys a quick update on the RFP for the comprehensive ordinance rewrite. Proposals were due last week on the 15th. We did receive 4 proposals, one from ZoneCo, one from EPR, who did our comprehensive plan update, one from the Berkeley Group, and then one from a team made up of Line and Grade, which is a civil engineering planning design firm, Timmons Group, and New Paradigm Planning. Our selection team is scheduled to meet later this week to go over those proposals. Based on those discussions, we may move forward with interviewing selected offers and then entering, obviously, contract negotiation. Looking out timeline-wise, generally contract authorizations are done as public hearing items at the Board of Supervisors meetings, which means regular business meeting. Kind of puts us in the December timeline of a potential start date. So.
Thank you, Mr. Ruggie. And any other reports, Mr. Silva?
Just one update insofar as what to expect for next month. We do have one CUP that will be coming forward to you all for consideration for a daycare in an existing church building, but that's the currently the only public hearing item on for November.
Thank you. All right, meeting schedule. We will hold our next meeting November 17th, 6:30 in the boardroom here. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Ms. Townsend. We are adjourned.
Do we want to have a Thanksgiving potluck before the meeting?
Yeah.